The door was locked. The lights were off. Everything looked exactly the same as it did yesterday. But it wasn't. The silence was heavier now. It cost nothing to stay quiet. Until it cost everything. He was the kind of man people trusted with their keys. He understood the weight of a ledger. He understood that numbers are just promises written in ink. For 20 years, he sat in the same chair. He watched the same figures move across the same screens. He was the guardian of the middle ground. The person who ensures the math remains honest so everyone else can sleep. Reliability is a quiet virtue. It is built over decades and can be dismantled in seconds. The system he worked for was old. It relied on a specific type of friction. A series of delays that kept the gears turning smoothly. But systems are designed by people. And people eventually find the gaps. It didn't start with a plan. It started with a realization. A single entry that didn't balance. It was a mistake. A simple, human error that favored the institution by a few $100s. He noticed it while reconciling the numbers. A line that didn't belong where it was. A total that arrived too early. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would stop the system. He waited for the alarm to sound. He waited for the notification to flash red on his monitor. It never came. The money sat there, unowned and unnoticed. Not assigned. Not claimed. Not questioned. It was a ghost in the machine. If he corrected it, the system would simply absorb it. The balance would close. The moment would disappear. If he moved it, no one would miss it. He stared at the screen longer than necessary. Long enough for the thought to form. Long enough for the silence to become an invitation. He moved it. Not to spend it. Not to keep it. Just to see if the system would blink. It didn't. The transfer completed without resistance. No warnings. No secondary approval. No follow-up email. The numbers rearranged themselves politely. As if this was always where they were meant to be. The money appeared in his private account as a series of silent digits. Clean. Ordinary. Unremarkable. It didn't feel like theft. It felt like a correction. A reward for paying attention. For being the one person who noticed what everyone else had missed. It wasn't about the amount. It was about the discovery. He had found a flaw in something that was supposed to be flawless. And once you see a crack, you start wondering how deep it goes. The second time was a choice. Nothing forced his hand. Nothing broke. Nothing demanded to be fixed. The world outside the office was getting heavier. The mortgage was a number. The debt was a number. His life had become a collection of balances he could no longer keep aligned. Inside the office, he controlled the ledger. Outside, he was losing control of everything else. He told himself it was temporary. A bridge. A small adjustment in timing. He took slightly more. He shifted a transfer by a day. He used the natural friction of the system to hide the gap. And nothing happened. No questions. No audits. No extra eyes. That was when he understood what trust really was. Trust wasn't belief. It was the absence of scrutiny. Because they trusted him, they stopped looking. Because they stopped looking, he disappeared. He began to move through the office differently. Calmer. More certain. Not because he was powerful. But because he was invisible. The numbers on his screen started to change their meaning. They were no longer wages or payments or obligations. They were symbols. Adjustable. Flexible. Obedient. And he was the only one with the eraser. Months passed. The bridge didn't collapse. It settled. He wasn't buying luxury. He wasn't building a new life. He was buying relief. And relief is addictive. When you've been holding your breath for too long, relief has a way of changing shape. What began as a temporary adjustment slowly hardened into structure. Something stable. Something that needed protection. He started to notice the behavior of others more clearly. How clients wanted more while offering less. How managers avoided details as long as the totals looked acceptable. No one wanted the truth. They wanted balance. That realization changed the rules. He wasn't the only one bending the system. He was simply the only one doing it quietly. So he took more. Not impulsively. Methodically. The gaps grew wider. To cover the first, he opened a second. To support the second, he redirected a third. Each adjustment solved a problem. And created a new one somewhere else. It became a structure. Elegant. Delicate. A private architecture only he could maintain. He arrived earlier. Left later. Not to work harder. But to make sure no one else touched the ledger. If someone else adjusted a number, the whole design could collapse. The work demanded precision. Memory. Constant attention. Mistakes were no longer allowed. What started as freedom had turned into responsibility. And responsibility has weight. He carried it with him everywhere. Home, dinner, sleep. The system no longer served him. He was serving the lie. The escalation was quiet. He stopped thinking in amounts. Hundreds meant nothing now. Even thousands lost their shape. He started thinking in time. How many weeks could he stretch before the next review? How many months could he survive before someone noticed? The money stopped feeling like relief. It felt like pressure. Every entry required justification. Every delay needed a reason. He watched the ledger the way others watch a storm. Constantly. Waiting for signs. He calculated meals in transactions. Repairs in offsets. Conversations in risk. The greed had shifted. It wasn't about wanting more. It was about keeping what already existed. The fear of returning to the man he used to be was stronger than the fear of being caught. Then it ended. Not with a call. Not with an accusation. On a Tuesday morning. A routine system update. A patch designed to improve efficiency. The friction he relied on disappeared. Transfers processed faster. Reconciliations closed automatically. The system no longer waited for him. He watched the numbers begin to align on their own. Slowly. Relentlessly. Like a tide coming in. Perfect. Cold. Unstoppable. For the first time in months. He did nothing. And that was the moment everything caught up. He didn't try to stop it. There were no files to delete. No numbers to move fast enough. The system was already ahead of him. He leaned back in his chair. And let the reconciliation finish. The weight he had been carrying finally became too heavy to hold. And with that weight came something unexpected. Relief. His manager approached his desk. Not angry. Not suspicious. Confused. He held a printout that didn't make sense. A question that had no answer. The silence stretched. He left his keys on the desk. Then his phone. He didn't go home. He walked out into the gray afternoon. Without direction. Without urgency. The money was gone. The reputation was gone. 20 years of reliability. Erased by a few months of arithmetic. He understood then. That the money had never been real. It was a ghost. And he had invited it in. Ghosts don't stay. They leave you empty. He sat on a bench near a fountain. Watching strangers pass. All of them carrying their own ledgers. All of them scanning for gaps. The green dollar isn't a reward. It's a measurement. Of how much someone is willing to lose. He had lost everything. And the world didn't pause. The system corrected itself. The numbers balanced. The ink dried. He was no longer a guardian. He was a mistake. That had finally been corrected. How much is your silence worth?